Hey, I'm Jackson Kirkpatrick.
This is Cam Cower with Kirk's Pitching Performance. We're here today to talk about maximizing your exposure for your fall season.
So the first thing that we need to talk about when we're talking about maximizing your exposure for the fall season is understanding what situation are you in. Are you a high school player? Are you a college player? What's your current ability level at? And what's your role gonna look like in the spring if nothing were to change?
Yeah, so like Kirk said, the two big kind of boxes we group guys into here are guys that are at the role they want to be and the guys that aren't. So are you a committed high school player? Are you an established college player with a guaranteed role coming up in the following season? Or are you a guy that's pushing for a college scholarship? Are you trying to get in front of scouts to get drafted? Or are you a freshman at a college, or are you at a new school and you're trying to impress your current coaching staff? Those are the two real buckets kind of amateur players we see guys fall into. So based off what bucket you fall into is really going to affect how we think you should go about approaching your fall season.
Right, so essentially what we're talking about here is balancing out performance now and then future performance, right, with your development. So identifying where you're currently at and where you want to go, that's going to be important to determine how much we might push ourselves in the weight room, how many innings we might throw, things like that, because it's going to be super important in how we're going to manage our overall programming. Obviously, if you're going to be pushing to maybe improve a strength base or overall speed or power, you may be getting a little bit more residual soreness on the weekends when you're going to be showcasing. So we have to balance that out and determine, okay, am I good enough right now and I just need to show what I can already do, or do I need to improve so that in the future I can show a new version of myself, right? And so I think that's what we really need to discuss. So let's get a little bit more in depth with the uncommitted guy, right? There's a ton of guys out there that haven't yet committed. They're trying to figure out, like, should I be really pushing for showcasing? Do I actually need to improve? What would you look at in determining if the guy is maybe somebody who needs to improve more before, looking for exposure, or somebody that can go ahead and get exposure right now and really prioritize just performing?
So what that really comes down to is being honest with yourself in your own personal baseball journey. Like, do you have the traits required to be a collegiate pitcher at the level you desire to go to? If you want to go Division I, are you 88 to 90 plus from either the right or left side with quality off-speed pitches and command of said pitches? Or are you a guy that's not quite where you want to be yet? Are you below that 88 to 90 mile an hour threshold? Is that basically where you want to go in your career? So just being honest with yourself is going to really determine where your priorities should be early in your fall season before deciding whether or not you're ready for exposure, or if you need to prepare a little bit to give yourself the maximum opportunity when that exposure does come.
Right, I mean, for me, looking into my personal history, in high school I was throwing in that 88 to 90 range, and so I thought I was prepared and that I didn't need to maybe improve as much, but that I just needed to try to get drafted or something out of high school, when really that wasn't going to be very feasible. So all I was trying to do was showcase for that. After I'm already committed, what I really probably should have been focusing on was actually getting better at the skill of pitching, because once I got to campus, I realized, well, the coach can't trust me because I can't consistently throw strikes. So it's also knowing what's your lowest hanging fruit in these situations and what's going to limit you from actually getting on the mound wherever you end up, whether that's professional baseball, college baseball, wherever it may be. But really addressing the root cause of why you're not where you want to be. Sometimes it's velocity and strength and stuff like that, and sometimes it's pitchability. And how do we go about further developing for guys that really need the pitchability aspect? Because obviously everybody wants to chase velo, but for some people that's not even the lowest hanging fruit.
Right, so if we're one of those guys that's chasing pitchability, chasing command, there's a lot of differential command training options we have, like throwing from different arm angles, athletic catch play, different constraints to all clean up and give you more efficient mechanics are going to help with kind of command of those pitches. Also, the main thing I see with guys at the amateur level, especially on off-speed pitches regarding command, is just a sheer lack of reps throwing those pitches. Guys will go out and throw 95% fastballs in their catch play, come in, flip a few sliders at 60 feet and call it a day there. Really not getting enough reps and comfortability with the different grips and off-speed pitches really limits guys' command, especially early in their careers. So one thing I'd recommend is just continuing to play catch more often with just off-speed pitches, just change-ups, getting really, really comfortable with those grips, throwing out of different positions with those grips to just further the connection between your brain and your body to understand that, yes, I can throw an off-speed pitch for a strike when I need to, rather than just hoping it's a strike because I just simply don't have enough reps with it.
Yeah, that's excellent. I really like that point. And to add to that point, right, once we have the skills and we've developed things athletically and we can actually, self-organize our body to be in the zone and we're working on our multiple pitches, now it comes down to also getting game reps and feeling comfortable in that setting, right? Because at the end of the day, if you're just constantly in training mode, you can become somebody that's only able to perform in that setting. And obviously, when you get to college, there's typically, or professional baseball as well, there's typically going to be a lot of external pressure, and so we need to be used to that. College coaches typically are not going to be super lax about guys spraying the ball all over the place, chasing velocity and things like that. So it's something that we need to be used to, and we need to be ready to perform in those situations. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Yeah, totally. Obviously, there's going to be external pressure if you're a high school player trying to showcase your ability in front of college coaches. You're going to try to impress your college coaches when you get on campus. So implementing elements of pressure in your training work, I think, helps to bridge the gap between training and competition mode. Whether you're in a bullpen and you give yourself some sort of, make a command game out of it. Try to execute pitches rather than just looking at a TrackMan and seeing what your movement profiles are for the day. Make everything in your training as game-like as possible so those external pressures have less of an effect when you experience them.
No doubt. We've all seen the guy, and I've probably been this guy at times where, you throw something halfway up the backstop in a bullpen, but, you set a PR or you had, some crazy movement profile on the pitch, and now you're all excited. And yeah, there might be a time and a place for that, but definitely we need to be primarily prioritizing execution and stuff together. And so in our training, while we might isolate one or the other, there needs to be a bridge of that. And a lot of the time, the way to do that is in your bullpens, both having a target, not just throwing to a net, because I do see that a lot with guys, wouldn't you agree? A lot of guys are just throwing to a net, and some guys can do that, but we definitely eventually, as we approach the season or the exposure that we're trying to get, whether that's right now or in the spring, we need to have a period of time where we're definitely throwing to a target consistently. Moving on a little bit, for that college guy that maybe they didn't pitch a ton the last year and they're at the same school or new school, but they need to probably improve a little bit, but they also need to impress their coach right now in order to maybe be in the conversation for some roles. How do we balance that? How do we bridge that gap?
So for that guy trying to earn a role on his college team or impress his new college staff, taking more of an in-season approach rather than strictly a developmental phase for your fall season is probably the way to go. Rather than chasing PRs in the weight room and putting on as much mass as we can, focusing your attention to inner squads and bullpens and treating those as real in-season games, having the external pressure of an in-season game during the fall makes everything, all those reps, a lot more valuable. So modifying our throwing to manage our workload in a way that we are properly primed and ready to go and recovered on the days we're required to pitch is probably of the utmost importance, as opposed to a guy that's more of in a developmental phase. Not quite as much experimentation in your inner squad games, sticking with the pitches are going to be successful, and having the attack plan to properly go at hitters is going to probably be the best way to go there.
Yeah, and I always say roles aren't necessarily won in the fall, but I do think your ability to pitch well in those roles in the spring is won in the fall, right? By actually doing it in the fall so that you're used to the situation, you're used to the environment as much as you possibly can be. Now flipping the script for a guy that is returning, pitched a ton of innings last year. They are securely in a role, Friday, Saturday, either out of the bullpen, starter, whatever it is. They are the guy at their school. What do you recommend for that guy?
So for the guy with an established role already, analyzing what part of your game was the weakness the year before and really attacking that in the fall is probably the way to go there. In 2020, going into that season, I was a relief pitcher in college with a really steady role, and I was looking to become a starter the following year. So one thing that was holding me back from that was just not having enough pitches in my mix. I was primarily fastball breaking ball, so the entire fall I spent trying to learn a changeup. Getting the feel for that changeup, using my opportunities in inner squads as experimentation and learning how the changeup plays in games. So if you're a college guy with already somewhat of an established role going into your next year, like if you need to add a new pitch, focus on doing things like that. If you're really limited by your strength base in the weight room, like placing more attention on the weight room and getting stronger is probably more of a focus than actually performing to your utmost potential. You can be a little sore in your inner squads if it means the next season you're going to be with a much stronger strength base and able to perform at a higher level.
No doubt, no doubt. So with those guys, obviously workload recommendations are going to look a little bit different. You have the guy that's in an established role, the guy that isn't. How would you go about, that process, right? Like whether they're trying to build velocity, command, pitch design, whatever they're trying to do, how are you going to go about managing these acute to chronic workload ratios?
Right. So for the unestablished guy, you're trying to showcase your best stuff in either fall scrimmages or showcase tournaments. So your acute high days are going to be really high. Like if you're an uncommitted guy going down to Jupiter, like you need to be throwing at your hardest. If you're a college freshman going on campus, you need to be throwing your hardest in inter squads. So you're going to have really high workload days on those actual in-game days. So there's going to be a lot more recovery days spread out throughout the week. You're going to have 2 or 3 days a week where it's super light catch at 60 feet just to ensure your body's properly recovered for that next high intensity day. Whereas if you're a college established guy or you're a high school player already committed to a school you're happy with going to, then probably you're going to have less high days and a lot more like medium to high intent days where you're either working on pitch design, you're throwing bullpens, trying to learn that new pitch, or you're working to improve your command by doing longer bullpens with throwing more strikes with your off-speed pitches. So probably not too much of a high-low system, a lot more like medium to high days with fewer recovery days spread throughout the week.
No, yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, personally for me, I was in a situation where I was not returning any, like I hadn't pitched. I'm trying to win a job, and one thing that I wish I could have changed is, I guess I learned from it, so I don't necessarily need to change it now. But when we look back, it's like I was throwing hard every single day in catch play, and now that can have not just velocity ramifications, which it definitely can, but also command. Because if my arm is constantly in a state of fatigue, and sometimes I don't even know it, I'm just not able to finish pitches. Like I'm leaving everything high arm side. I'm constantly like out of gas, and I don't know why. I'm just throwing as hard as I can because I think that that's the only way I can get feel for the baseball. So it's like on all my flat ground work, I'm throwing at like 90-95% like every day. And while luckily my arm hung out largely because of the fact I wasn't pitching a ton in the games, it just wasn't a good strategy to improve my command. So something that you definitely need to consider for both velocity and command purposes is this workload management concept where we have these spikes on these high days, and then we have the medium and low days to fill in the gaps and give our arms some time to actually recover. Moving on, just want to speak a little bit to playing the long game, right? Like certain guys are trying to win right now, and certain guys are trying to play the long game. Like for me, I was constantly in a headspace of like trying to play the long game, while I probably should have been focused more on performing right then. But then there's other guys you see that they're trying to perform right now, and maybe they do need to play the long game more to get the opportunities they want in the future.
Right, so knowing whether you need to play the short or long game, I think comes along with whichever boat you fall into, whether you're the established guy or the unestablished guy. For the unestablished guy, they probably do need to play more of the short game to have the opportunity to end up playing the long game. If you're not committed as a high school player, you need to play the short game because nothing is guaranteed after high school. You may not get the opportunity to play any longer. Whereas if you are the committed college player or committed high school player or college player with an established role, like you may have the opportunity to play a little bit more of the long game, especially if you're the college guy and you're not draft eligible that year. If you are draft eligible, you may want to end up focusing more of your attention on the short game, performing right then to give yourself the opportunity to play the long game down the road.
Sweet. I mean, I think those are really good points. Moving to training strategies and kind of transitioning into our actual off season, because obviously the fall is kind of a mini season, and then we have this off-season period in the winter. Guys go home. Normally there's a Christmas break for high school guys, and there's also a Christmas break for college guys. What should guys be doing during that period of time? Does it depend on certain things? What should they be doing in the weight room? Throwing, should they shut down? Should they deload? Should they continue throwing? How should that work?
Yeah, it definitely depends on your situation. There's a ton of different variables that go into that. If you're a high school guy that started a ton of games during your season, you went straight into a summer season, threw a ton of innings there, and then you threw a solid number of innings in your fall season, you may end up needing somewhat of a shutdown period. I don't recommend long shutdowns. Normally the rule of thumb we follow is it takes twice as long to build back up as whatever you took off. So for instance, if you were a guy that took the old school approach of a 2 to 3 month shutdown, it's probably going to take you somewhere between 4 and 5 months to gain that arm strength back. And for most guys, you don't have that long in the off season to do that. So I certainly wouldn't recommend that. If you're a guy like in your circumstance throughout your college years, you didn't have a lot of innings throughout your collegiate season, played some summer ball and then came back in the fall and didn't throw a lot of innings there, and you're a guy that already had a significant strength base. So in your circumstance, I would say like continuing to pitch and continuing to work on things during the off-season period and not really taking any sort of shutdown. If you didn't have 50 plus innings throughout the calendar year, you probably have really no reason for a shutdown if you have a significant base of strength and your body's in a good position to handle that. If you're a guy that isn't in that kind of shape, if you're not strong enough to handle that kind of workload, then maybe there is some deload period needed and some attention placed on the strength side.
No doubt. I mean, to your point, like there's a period of time of probably 2 years where I didn't shut down, and that was the period where I grew the most in command, in velocity, in my pitches, like, you know, understanding how my body moves. All these things were massively improved over this short window, or this long window of time where I was continuously throwing. For me, it always felt like early in my college career, you know, you'd shut down for maybe a week or two. Luckily, it wasn't for a month or two, but even then, when I came back, it was like, okay, I gotta kind of feel this stuff out. And so there was this window of time where, one, you're building up, so you can't really get any high intensity throws in, so you can't really improve the high intensity version of the throw. And then secondly, you know, you kind of feel like you've lost some feel, at least for me. I don't know if you experienced something like that at times.
I didn't really experience too much feel at times, but yeah, there's definitely times where after taking longer periods of time off during throwing wise, my body doesn't feel quite as great ramping up. Like for the past 3 years, I've been a guy that has continued to trend up in velocity throughout my season, and then after the season, I take a deload, and so I bring my intensity way down, and I have a hard time getting back up to that maximum intensity. For me, it takes a long time to reach kind of my max speed. It takes many months of kind of building up my workload. So this off season, I don't plan on really taking any time off and kind of maintaining that intensity, so I don't have to deal with that kind of growing pains of A, my body not feeling great during a ramp up process, and B, like suffering from kind of lower velocity earlier in the season because it takes me longer to get going. So
I really like that you brought that perspective, because now there's kind of two sides of it, and both sides are kind of against the longer shutdown, because, you know, for one side trying to maybe improve your command and your feel and your execution, and on the other side maybe trying to improve your velocity. And we see how like the long shutdown where you're not doing your skill is kind of going to diminish some of those positive adaptations that you gained. So it's definitely something to consider, and not just jump into this long window of shutdown without really thinking about why am I doing this and what are going to be the ramifications on this build-up period, because it could impact your season quite a bit. Cool. Sweet. Well, hope you guys enjoyed. If you want to see more videos like this, subscribe to this YouTube page, and then also follow us on Kirk's Pitching Performance on Instagram. And we will also be linking our free 1-week program in the description, so go check that out. You'll just fill out like this quick little form, and a link will be sent straight to your inbox with the program. Hope you enjoy. Thanks.